and do roll call. Committee member Berenek is absent. Committee member Schmidt.
Here.
Committee member Vanden Eyck.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Funk.
Here.
3 present, 2 absent.
And I see, if you can amend that, I see member Berenek is joining. So.
Amended, that will be 4 present, 1 absent.
Great, thank you very much. We're formally calling the meeting to order of the Design Review Committee. And do I have a motion for approval of the agenda?
I'll make the motion, please.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Do we need to, I keep forgetting if we need a roll call on this.
Yes, I'll go ahead and do that.
Please do so.
Committee member Berenek.
Yes.
Committee member Schmidt.
Yes.
Committee member Vanden Eyck.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Funk.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay. And now it's time for public comment. And if folks could be mindful of muting if you're not speaking, thanks. We're getting some background noise. This is now time for public comment. This is the opportunity for anyone to raise an issue that is not on our agenda today, but that is under the jurisdiction of the Design and Review Committee. Would anyone like to bring anything up in public comment? And if you are, I see we have some participants here who are not on the panel. So if you'd like to raise anything in public comment, please use the raised hand function on Zoom, which is at the bottom center of your screen. And that will alert us that you want to make a comment. Do we have anybody joining by phone today?
I don't see anybody.
Okay. I'm seeing no one requesting public comment. I will close public comment and we will move to our consent calendar, which is the hot topic of approval of the October 13th draft minutes. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve that.
I'll second.
It has been moved and seconded. Would you call the roll?
Committee member Berenek.
Yes.
Committee member Schmidt.
Yes.
Committee member Vanden Eyck.
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Funk.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Great. Okay, now we're diving into the meat of our agenda for today. We're looking at the design and neighborhood compatibility review of a Chipotle restaurant at 6435 Morrow Road. Take it away, Mariah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and start my presentation here. Okay. Okay, there we go. Yes, so this is the design review of a new Chipotle in an existing drive-through space at 6435 Morrow Road. So as we take a look at the zoning map here, you can see that the new Chipotle location is in the commercial tourism zone right along Morrow Road or Highway 41 on the other side of the street. That lighter purple is commercial professional, and then Highway 41 or Highway 101 is to the north there. The property is made up of 2 separate lots, and the total size of those is 0.72 acres. And here we can see an aerial view of those 2 lots. So the building is on one, and then the majority of the parking lot is on the other lot. A little bit of background and history about this site. The subject property was formerly the A&W drive-through restaurant, which closed in February of just this year. The original tenant was actually Del Taco. It was approved as a drive-through through a precise plan in 1996. So if you remember when we talked about the Sonic in the old KFC just a couple weeks ago, this is the exact same situation. The municipal code allows a use that's authorized through a precise plan to continue as long as it doesn't remain vacant for more than 24 consecutive months. And since the A&W just closed in February of this year, it's been less than 24 months. Therefore, Chipotle's proposed drive-through use is allowed to be continued under that original approval. The proposal is to utilize the existing drive-through restaurant and add some outdoor seating with an expanded trash enclosure out in the parking lot. With the redesign of the building, they are going to be replacing the mansard style roof with a flat roof, as well as updating the exterior finishes to include a new panel around the roof edge, which we'll talk about, and a total of 22 parking spaces will be maintained, in addition to 8 parking spaces that are within the drive-through queuing area. So here we can see the site design. The building is going to remain unchanged other than the footprint of the building is going to be unchanged. They are adding some new outdoor dining space there along Morrow Road, which will have a ramp coming up from Morrow Road, and there will be some new landscaping, which we'll talk about around that new outdoor dining area. You can see the existing drive-through does exit onto Morrow Road, and then there's also an easement with the property to the north to exit onto that property as well if someone decides that they want to pick up food and then go get gas. That was the purpose of the easement, I was told by the adjacent owner. And the property, while it's most likely going to be accessed off of Morrow Road, there is also an access point off of Chacarita that can be used for ingress and egress. And then this says drive-in canopy, but this is obviously not a drive-in canopy. That was probably left over. This is the addition to the trash enclosure here in the parking lot to meet current trash standards. So since the property is located on 2 separate parcels, staff is recommending that the properties either be merged to ensure that they continue to be used as one use, or after talking to the applicant, their preference is that the owner will record a document on these properties, and that will be done prior to the issuance of building permits stating that these properties cannot be sold individually unless the uses on each property comply independently with the zoning code. And what that essentially means is right now the building is on majority of one of the sites or one of the properties. The parking lot is on the other property, and there's nothing today to stop the properties from being sold individually. It's unlikely, but let's say the parking lot was sold off and now the drive-through is out of compliance with the parking standards. So that's the reason for that, and staff wants to give them an option between those two, but like I said, we talked to the applicant and the preferences with the second one and just recording a document on the properties instead of actually merging those lots. So this is a little bit of an older picture of the A&W. If you drive by today, it doesn't look quite this maintained. It's been vacant for a couple months, but this is generally what it looked like. You can see the mansard style roof there, and that's going to be replaced with a more modern roof. It's got more vertical lines. If you've been to Chipotle, you know that they do sort of mix materials and go with the more modern style. So you can see the top of the roof will be a straight design with a cement gray plaster color. And then there will be a metal panel around the roof between the roof and the walls to, again, add a little bit more texture to the design. The building itself will be this really dark gray color with the dark bronze doors and windows. And then there will be some aluminum tubing along the sides of the front and the parking lot side, which we'll look at in just a second to add some more architectural interest. And then the picture that you see at the bottom, this is the rear side of the building. This is what would be seen if you're going through the parking lot. This faces Chacarita. And this top picture you see, that is what would be facing the parking lot. The majority of the parking lot, you can see there's more of that metal tubing with a couple of windows and that door there. And then the kitchen is located primarily in the back here. So there's not really any windows or doors to that area because that's not the dining area. And then the bottom picture you see there is the drive-through. And again, you just see the one drive-through window with the same color scheme and another Chipotle sign at the top there. So moving on to landscaping, there is some existing landscaping on this property that's to be maintained with the project. New landscaping is proposed around the parking lot and the outdoor seating area. Replanting will need to incorporate drought tolerant species, so we'll go ahead and approve that with the building permit submittal. And existing plants will need to be pruned to maintain an orderly appearance. Right now, if you go out to the site, like I said, it's been vacant, there hasn't been a lot of maintenance, so we just want to clean up what's already there as well. And then areas that have become barren where mulch was existing will need to be covered with new mulch to match what was there. So here we can see a landscape plan. These areas around the edges are what's existing and to be maintained primarily. There are some new plants going in around the drive-through, and most notably along the front of Morrow Road here. This is the ramp coming up, the accessible ramp from Morrow Road. And then we just see some landscaping between that ramp and the outdoor seating to add a little bit of privacy for that outdoor seating. There's some landscaping located between the parking lot and again, the outdoor seating that's located right here, and some decorative boulders to separate that seating area from the parking lot. And then some of the landscape fingers will be updated with new landscaping as well. So staff will require a planning inspection prior to the filing of their building permit and granting final occupancy to ensure that the landscaping is sufficient and planted per the approved plan, as well as maintained during construction of the building. And I apologize, this was not included in the staff report, but they did provide sign details. It's pretty much the same sign on 3 sides of the building. The top picture is the front there, facing Morrow Road. The second picture is what would be facing the parking lot. And then that third picture is what would be facing the drive-through or that gas station to the north. And they'll just be replacing the existing signs out there that were previously used by A&W with their Chipotle logo signs, as well as that freeway facing sign. So to go over staff's recommendations, we are recommending that the owner either merge the 2 lots prior to building permit issuance, or that the owner record a document on the properties prior to building permit issuance, clarifying that they can't be sold separately unless the uses on each lot comply independently with the zoning code. A planning inspection will be required prior to a building permit final to ensure that landscaping is sufficient, again, and remains maintained during construction. The signs, the overall sign sizes will need to comply with the municipal code standards, and that'll be looked at the time of the building permit submittal for those signs. And then the colors and materials of the trash enclosure addition will need to match what's existing there on the site to make sure that everything is coherent. So there's not a ton that staff is looking for specifically from the design review committee, but we do want to just talk about the design and architecture, and if the design review committee has any concerns or recommendations, we just want to discuss those in general. And with that, staff is available for questions.
Great, thank you very much, Mariah. Okay, Dennis, go ahead.
2 questions. I start with, I very much appreciate Chipotle moving here, and I think the architecture is wonderful. Thank you. Trash enclosure. I think I've asked this before in other projects. For stormwater, reasons are they covered in our stormwater control plan documents? Do we have to cover those to prevent rain from going into the bins and washing out bad things onto the ground?
I'm not aware of any coverage standards. Maybe Kelly, do you have an idea about that?
I'm
Okay.
not aware either, but let me shoot a quick message to our engineering team and see if we can get that answer.
Okay, and then I'm always been puzzled by the highway signs. Before, when I questioned it, I was told that the gas station and A&W were owned by the same property owners. And that's why A&W, although not fronting the highway, was allowed to access a highway sign. But the same is true across the street with the Chevron and the McDonald's, which I'm both kind of puzzled about. In that these two units aren't going to be, or properties aren't going to be owned by the same property owner, is the use of the 76 sign by Chipotle, is that something that's being grandfathered in? Or how's that being addressed? Do we know? And I noticed now that half the sign is taken out from before the A&W portion is gone.
So yeah, Chipotle is allowed to add their sign because they're replacing that A&W sign. That is an agreement that they do need to work on, or they may already have with the adjacent property owner. But if they have an agreement to utilize that sign space, then the city will allow them, because they're just basically refacing an existing sign with their own logo.
And despite the property not being highway frontage, then that's so. I mean, I encourage them to use it, but I just don't want any issues for them because, again, the property is not a highway frontage piece of property.
Yeah, if this is coming in as a brand new highway sign and they wanted their own, I don't know if it would be approved, but since they're just refacing a sign, they're allowed to use it.
And I believe that was probably the reason why they connected the sites together at that drive-through lane. We tend to have a higher standard today for what it means to be one shared center. But I think back when this was constructed many years ago, that allowed them to be considered one center and then allowed them to have the freeway frontage sign.
And then that would be similar, same thing on the other side of the street then. It'd be those.
Correct, yes.
Kind of this integrated together. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Other questions? Emily, go ahead.
I have one quick one. I know in our last hearing, Mariah, for the Sonic, there was some, I don't want to say misrepresentation, or at least the rendering of the body color of the building was a little off. Can you tell me on this one if in fact, as far as you know, the body color is to be this dark? There was gray and dark gray referenced, but do you know how dark we should expect it to be? Will it in fact be this near black color?
That's a good question for the applicant. My impression is that it will be this color, but they can clarify if that's being misrepresented on this rendering.
Okay, that's my only question. I like the design, and I'm happy to see another of our commercial buildings getting an update.
Very good. Jeff, any questions right now?
None yet. Thanks.
Okay, I've got a couple. Does the overall dimension of the signage appear to be in compliance with the sign ordinance? Do we know?
It's hard for me to judge at this point. It looks like they do have, they have 3 signs on the faces of the building, and then we'll have to calculate how large those existing signs are. So I'm not sure.
Okay. Is there any significant change in the overall height of the building with the current building? The design of the roof's a lot different, but.
I don't believe so. That's a good question. Maybe the applicant can elaborate, but it's my impression that it's basically the same height.
Okay. When you mentioned the option for the owner to record a document, is that essentially a deed restriction?
Correct.
Okay. And then if you go back to the site plan document for a moment, thanks. In that one, I see on Tecorita side, I see trees. And I believe those are existing trees. There are a lot of trees in the area.
Mhm.
So those, I didn't see those as clearly on the other documents, but are those trees being maintained?
Let's take a look at yeah, you're right. They're not super clear, but they might be what are represented right here. I don't believe they're taking out any trees, and we certainly wouldn't want them to. I think they're just maintaining this whole back area.
Okay, I mean, the trees are if I recall, pretty well established, and there would be a
Mhm.
valuable community asset in interfacing with this kind of a business. And then the trash enclosure you mentioned, keeping it the same color to be in compliance, I don't know what color it currently is. Does it comply with the new color scheme, which is quite a bit different than the prior usages color scheme?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think it's just a neutral CMU block wall at this point, so we're not super concerned. If the applicant wants to repaint it, I suppose we wouldn't have an issue with that. We just are concerned that we want them to obviously match.
Yeah, okay. That seems fine. And then for purposes of reference, since I always think about El Camino as going north and south in this area, could you specify, in looking at that site plan, what we're referring to as north?
So north, maybe it's easier to see on the aerial view. North is where the drive-through will be. The south is the parking lot area. So when I'm referring to north and south, this would be the north and this would be the south side.
Great, thank you. That just helps me to be obvious on the document, since reality is not so convenient.
Sure.
Okay, any other committee questions? Seeing none, let's open it up to if we do we have a representative of the applicant who'd like to speak and also address the questions that we've raised. I see Callie Huff.
Yes, this is Callie, the applicant with the ownership group. I just wanted to answer a few of your guys' questions. Yes, the paint color is very, very dark, so it is an accurate representation of the rendering. The overall building height, the existing is 19 feet, and that's what we will be maintaining in the new design as well. And we are going to be keeping all of the mature trees.
Great. And did you wish to make any comments on the color scheme of the trash enclosure?
I don't believe we have a color spec yet, but we will definitely paint it and bring it up, like make it look nice.
Okay. That covers my notes of questions that came up. Anything else that you would like us to know?
No, we appreciate you guys welcoming us into your community. So thank you. And Maria's been great to work with. So thanks.
Awesome. We are excited that Chipotle wanting to invest in the area.
Yes.
Okay. Now I'd like to open it up for other public comment. Would anyone else on the call like to speak? And I'm trying to get to where I can, let's see, I have Paul Grow, if you could let Paul on the line.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for reviewing this. We're really excited to come to Morro Bay and Atascadero in particular on Morro Road. So yeah, thank you for your comments here. One, I did want to mention on the color, it's Victorian pewter. It is a dark gray. At least on my screen, and screens are notoriously bad at representing colors. It does look darker than it does in person from my, experience having seen this color in multiple of our buildings. It is a 23% light reflectance value. It almost looks black, at least on the screen that I'm looking at. So I think it's a little bit lighter than actually as it's being represented here. But it is, it is a darker gray, and that's why we, put the white up above to give it a little bit of lightness there, and then also the aluminum tubes with some color and light there as well, to give it a little bit more pop. So I just wanted to comment on that.
Great, thank you. And I believe we have a couple of committee member questions for you. So let me go ahead and recognize Dennis at this point.
Yes, Paul, you used the word pewter, so that's the color gray is a pewter color.
Yeah, I mean it's called Victorian pewter. That's what Pittsburgh Paint calls it.
So when I think of a pewter a dish or something, that's what we're talking about.
I think it's a little darker than that.
Okay.
Just because you know how creative paint companies come up with their names. So.
Thank you.
Victorian pewter probably has some tarnish to it. It's been around a bit. Could you also comment on the extent to which the color of the top of the roof and its reflectiveness? Because there are some two-story buildings in across the street a little ways. There's some trees in between and so forth, but it's always useful to know what it looks like from on top.
So you're talking about the lighter, whiter color? Is that what you're referring to?
What I'm actually referring is what's the top of the roof for people who are in second-story residences looking down on this building. What does the top of the roof look like?
Yeah, I think it's probably going to be redone, and it's probably going to be a light-colored roof for the needs of the green code. Or I think the architect can comment on that exactly. Obviously, we'll have rooftop units for air conditioning, heating,
So it's a parapet.
exhaust, all those. Those will all be brand new units, so it's not going to look like a train wreck up there. It'll all be brand new, and I believe the roof will be re-roofed, and probably with a very light colored roof. And I can ask, the architect here to clarify on that.
Okay, and the extent to which that roof is reflective would be probably the item of interest to folks looking down.
Sure.
And Dennis,
Is it a
The
parapet?
architect on the call that's representing the developer answer that?
sure, we will. We'll circle back in a second. Let me ask.
Okay,
Let Commissioner Schmidt ask this question.
Is the roof a parapet?
There is a parapet, yes.
Okay, thank you.
There's a large parapet wrapping all around it, and then the roof is set down deeper so that the mechanical units sit in that well.
So it won't be as seen as much and be as reflective as much being down then.
Yeah, I don't think you'll see it unless you're you're above, you're quite high, or you're flying over it.
I'm not worried about flying over flight.
Yeah.
But second story residences in sight. That's what I'm attentive. Okay. Any other committee questions for Mr. Grove? Okay. Do we have anyone else available wishing to speak? And can you remind, we have one person who's calling in. Can you remind me what the caller needs to do technically? It's *6 or *9 or something of that sort to be able to raise their hand and to unmute themselves.
Yeah, if the caller would like to speak, you can go ahead and press *9 and that will unmute, or that will raise your hand, and then you can press *6 to unmute yourself.
Thank you. And I'm not seeing that happening. So if there are no other comments, then we will go back to we'll close public comment and we'll go back to the committee for discussion. Committee members, any comments?
Just very encouraged that they're moving and can't wait for them to open.
Yeah, my only comment is I'm Happy to see them coming into town, and I think it'll be a great asset to Atascadero for sure.
Good. And Mariah, could you put back up on the screen the questions on which staff wish to have the staff recommendations, which would be, in case we have just to clarify.
Sure.
Yeah.
So these are the recommendations. This first one is just about the lots and merging or that deed restriction, the landscaping, the signs that they have to require, that they have to meet the municipal code standards, and that the colors and materials of the trash enclosure. And that one can be revised from match what is existing to complement the building, if you'd like.
Yeah, that would be fine.
And I did just want to let you know that we did hear back from our city engineer, and there's no requirements to actually roof a trash enclosure because the bins have been designed with covers and lids on them.
Okay, thank you. Committee members, is everyone comfortable with the staff's recommendations with the minor adjustment to the color of the trash enclosure that it matched the building or complement?
Yeah, I think staff recommendations are good, including that complementary color.
I concur.
And Dennis, I saw the thumbs up. Okay, I concur too, and to share the other committee members' excitement that Chipotle is coming to town. I think it'll be a great addition, and we look forward to working closely with you. And does staff need anything else from us?
I don't think so. Kelly, do we have to make any kind of motion, or are we good on?
Yeah, I believe the new laws require that we have a motion that supports staff's recommendation for the record.
Well, then in that case, I will make a motion that we approve staff's recommendations, including that modification to the trash enclosure color to match the color palettes of the new building.
Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, it's moved and seconded. Seeing nobody looking for discussion, will you call the roll, please?
Committee Member Bernack?
Yes.
Committee Member Schmidt?
Yes.
Committee Member Van den Eyck?
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Funk?
Yes,
Motion passes.
very good. So now we'll move on to committee member comments and reports. Does anyone have any comments or reports? I'm looking at yeah, it's okay. Director's report. Does anyone on the staff wish to? Kelly, would you like to give us any updates for us about?
Sure. I don't know that we have much to say. We are heading into sort of holiday season. And so we might not have a lot of items coming forward around that time. But if there's anything important, we'll definitely get them scheduled and let you know. Just a couple updates around town and things happening. We were at council on Tuesday with our accessory dwelling unit ordinance and some changes to Title IX for consistency with that. And the council did approve those changes. And so we'll be doing a second reading on the 8th, which means I think those regulations will go into effect in early December. We've already have our SB 9 regulations going into effect shortly if they have not already. We also have all of our permits in for Del Rio Marketplace. So we have the main shell building for Valley Fresh and all of their site improvements. So that is rather exciting. And I know there's been a lot of road paving and new sidewalks and curbs constructed out there on the Taco Bell and retail side of the project site. So that is exciting that is all moving forward. And if you have any questions, Mariah and I'd be happy to answer what we can.
Kelly, I don't know if have there been any applications for tenants in any of those other buildings with the Taco Bell?
Mariah, I haven't seen anything come through. I don't know. Maybe Mariah has seen something.
I haven't heard or seen any new tenants there.
And is that zoned commercial? What is that? What are those buildings? What's the intended use?
I believe it's commercial tourist zone over there.
Okay.
I think the hope is that some uses go in that might serve the hotel and some of the surrounding residential areas.
Yeah, I believe that Lorelei indicated to council that there has been significant interest in those spaces, and that some tenant improvements are in progress.
Yeah,
but
there has
so
been.
far I haven't heard.
Yeah, there's been a lot of interest. We have some new commercial developments that are in pre-application stage moving forward, and there's a lot of smaller business interest, and we're connecting those people up. And so I think that things are in the works. We don't know until they become final, but things are in the works.
Well, I'm just in general very, very, very happy at the progress we're making as a community and the way staff has been treating new applicants and businesses, and really encouraging to fit within our community really well.
Yeah, lots of good things happening.
And do we have, I know we have a couple of large commercial properties that are potentially transferring ownership. And do we have any updates on the Del Rio Ranch or Dove Creek commercial properties with regard to ownership and plans?
Yeah, we don't have any updates to date. We know that they are on the market and up for sale. The current owners of those sites definitely know the process and know to send people to talk to staff early on to make sure that it's not purchased, for something that maybe is not allowed on the site. We have met with a couple potential people who might take those sites over for development. And I know there's been a lot of interest on the Del Rio Ranch site in particular.
Okay. Any other questions for staff? My last one is those the stock ADU plans. I know they're getting close.
They are so close. They were hoping for kind of like a 2-day turnaround after they got submitted. But our building official's daughter got married last weekend. So he did take a few days off to go celebrate with his family. But he is back on track, and we're basically just reviewing their modifications to the plan to make sure that all of the corrections were captured. So we do expect those literally to be ready in like 1 to 2 weeks. For distribution. We're working on some brochures and handouts to help people understand what that process looks like. We're also working on some potential streamlining policies so that we can avoid soils reports as much as possible for some of those smaller units, especially, and trying to make it a really user-friendly process for people.
Are they going to the plans? Are they going to be purchased, or how's that functioning?
Sure, it's our thought, and I believe that this is our agreement with the designers, that those plans would be free to use. We will have a process where we need sort of your address, and we can put your address on sort of the title sheets and the title bars. We don't want somebody just using our plans in any city America. We did do this program for our Atascadero and the other cities that we're partnering with. And so for now, those, will need to be tied specifically to a property in Atascadero, but we are going to release those for free. There would be no plan check fees other than those needed for grading and drainage, and anything planning would need to look at in terms of setbacks. So the plan check fee will be greatly reduced for that. And we're hoping that as those plans get out and some of our builders look at them, that they are truly efficient and we can get people moving with more units.
Very good. And the maximum size of those plans is about 1,000 square feet, as I recall?
Yeah, I think it ranges from about 350, 400 or so up to 1,000 square feet. The 1,000 square foot does have a 3-bedroom option. And the 750 square foot footprint does have one that's about 960 square feet with a loft option.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Seeing nothing else, we stand adjourned to, we don't have a specific, we have a tentative date of November 10th, which may or may not be needed for activities, but we'll stand adjourned until that time, or until such time as we are called to order. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.